It's been a long wait, and developer GSC Game World has certainly been through the ringer behind the scenes, but STALKER 2 Heart of Chernobyl is finally almost upon us. Its blend of immersive sim, survival horror, and first-person shooter open world action has looked increasingly promising in all that we've seen of it thus far, with the long-awaited sequel looking like the sort of return to the limelight that STALKER fans have been hoping to see for the franchise for so long. STALKER 2 is, of course, going to be a familiar kind of gameplay experience to returning series fans, but at the same time, GSC Game World is also evolving, tweaking, and improving upon the series formula in more than a few ways, with the game set to launch not long from now. Here, we're going to look at a few such ways that the series' highly anticipated return is going to be different from the original STALKER trilogy. Unreal Engine 5. Shadow of Chernobyl, Clear Sky, and Call of Pripyat were all developed by GSC Game World's internal X-Ray engine, but with STALKER 2, the developer decided to take a different direction. The sequel is instead built on Unreal Engine 5, making it the first game in the series to do so, which in turn has brought a number of benefits, as per the studio itself. The game uses the engine's lumen and nanite technologies to deliver impressive visual and technical results with the environments, lighting, and more, so players can expect a much greater level of detail in locations, allowing the settings to be brought to life much more comprehensively, in addition making use of the engine's expanded toolset. However, STALKER 2 Heart of Chernobyl is also going to bring forward, in overhauled form, some of the original trilogy's key characteristics on the tech front. Speaking of which, AIFI 2.0. The original STALKER trilogy stands out for a multitude of reasons, but chief among them is the AIFI system, which is what GSC Game World dubbed its proprietary system of artificial intelligence. In a nutshell, AIFI governed literally hundreds of NPCs and monsters throughout the entirety of the game world, each with their own unique schedule and non-scripted behaviors that they would continue to follow even when they weren't interacting with the player. That, of course, grew increasingly common in open-world games as time went on, but the STALKER series did it better than most. It's not surprising then that STALKER 2 is touting AIFI 2.0, which GSC Game World says will make for a dynamic, unpredictable, and highly reactive open world where things will always be happening regardless of whether or not the player is there to witness them. This is how the studio describes the overhauled AIFI system in the upcoming shooter. The reimagined version of the system, which we call AIFI 2.0, will control the state of the world and the behavior of characters and mutants, making the zone ever-changing and truly alive. Countless events and encounters will happen every moment, even if you're not around to witness them with your own eyes. New Protagonist. It doesn't look like STALKER 2 is going to lose the series' trademark level of stiff challenge in a bid to appeal to newcomers. But given how long the series was dormant, it is still being designed as a game that those not familiar with the past entries can play and understand. That goes hand in hand with a new protagonist. Shadow of Chernobyl, Clear Sky, and Call of Pripyat saw us playing as S.T.A.L.K.E.R and Major Alexander Degtyarev, respectively. And STALKER 2 Heart of Chernobyl will once again introduce a new protagonist in the form of a stalker named Skiff. Does that mean we shouldn't expect any familiar characters to rear their heads through? That seems unlikely. The aforementioned S.T.A.L.K.E.R, for instance, has had a crucial role to play in all STALKER games thus far, so we wouldn't be surprised to see him showing up in the upcoming sequel as well. New locations. STALKER 2 is once again going to take players to the infamous Chernobyl exclusion zone, where the original trilogy was absolutely set as well. That, of course, will mean the return of plenty of familiar locations, though players can expect to see a host of new locations as well. In total, GSC Game World has revealed that STALKER 2's map is over 60 square kilometers in size, touting it as one of the biggest open-world maps ever made, with a total of 20 different regions, which means players can expect to see plenty that they haven't seen before, even if this isn't your first time in the zone. Enhanced returning locations. As mentioned, plenty of locations you visit in STALKER 2's world will be familiar to you if you have played the original Stalkers, with areas such as Kordon, Duga, Pripyat, and many others confirmed to be returning. But though you'll be seeing several familiar locations, landmarks, and what have you, you'll be seeing them in significantly enhanced form, with the game boasting a much greater level of detail and fidelity. Meanwhile, on top of the visual boosts, familiar locations in STALKER 2 might also be tweaked in their design, such as some areas that weren't accessible in past titles now being fully explorable. Seamless open world. Here's another major improvement to look forward to from a technical perspective. The original STALKER trilogy obviously prided itself on the freedom it offered to players across its open world settings, but thanks to the technological limitations of the hardware they were made for, those games' maps were never fully seamless, instead being split up and then stitched back together with loading screens. Thankfully, as you'd expect, that won't be the case in STALKER 2, which is going to be a fully seamless open world experience. Given how heavily the game is emphasizing the immersion factor, that should certainly be a boost. AI improvements. We've already spoken about the improvements GSC Game World is making to the AI in STALKER 2 with its AIFI 2.0 system, but that will govern characters' behaviors independent of the player. What can we expect from the game's AI with something more direct and straightforward, like combat? GSC Game World has said that it's made improvements in this area as well. As fans of the original trilogy will tell you, the STALKER franchise did continue to offer AI improvements with time, for the most part, but hopefully, we're in for a much bigger leap with the series' upcoming revival. New factions, mutants, and anomalies. This one shouldn't come as any surprise, but yes, players will be encountering plenty of new mutants, factions, and anomalies throughout the exclusion zone in STALKER 2 Heart of Chernobyl. Unsurprisingly, developer GSC Game World hasn't gone into too much detail on exactly what to expect from the game on that front. Presumably, the developers want players to discover that themselves, but we do know that though there will be factions, anomalies, and mutants in STALKER 2 that will be familiar to series fans, there will also be several others who will not be. Length. All three of the original STALKER games are quite sizable, the first one in particular, but Heart of Chernobyl is looking like it's going to crank things up a notch on that front. As opposed to the average length of anywhere between 20 to 30 hours for the original trilogy games, with some obvious variations depending on how you're playing, STALKER 2 is being touted as a game with a 40-hour main story, while for completionists it will be more like a 100-hour game according to GSC Game World. Less jank. As great as the original STALKER games were, even the biggest defenders will tell you that they had a distinct lack of polish. STALKER 2 looks like it absolutely will retain the tone and style of its predecessors, but it's also looking like a much less janky version of that style of experience. That's something that the game's hands-on previews have stated as well, and frankly, we couldn't be more excited about a STALKER game that feels polished without losing any of the series' many other idiosyncrasies. Hey, did you know that we at GamingBolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.